All right, so we've talked about process and outcome goals if you're following me along on the webpage, but we also addressed what was called the running formula, whereas if you are thinking that you would potentially want to be a driven and dedicated, performance-driven athlete, then potentially and most likely there's a performance in mind, a time that you want to run, whether it's for the half mile, the marathon, doesn't matter. But we have to be honest with ourselves and recognize that this performance is not wholly within our control. It's an outcome goal that is dependent upon the different variables of your process goals leading up to it. Some of these variables you can control and you can't control. The first variable that influences your performance, is your genetics. We can all take a moment of realization and recognize that genetics plays a part in whether or not I can accomplish my performance goal. If I tell myself in my mind, I really want to break 16 minutes in the 5K, well, the genetics that you have is not within your control to manipulate. You can try to do that in a test tube somewhere else, but not while a part of performance and dedicated training. That's not something we tamper with, not within our control, but it has a bearing. Also, what has a bearing is your training. That is within our control. It's within my control or your coach's control. So that is controlled by myself or your coach, right? You might be working really hard. You might have incredible genetics and you might be willing to stop at nothing to get your training done. But if your training is crappy and it's not the right training for the distance and the objective that you have, you're not going to do very well. No matter how hard you work, if your training to try to run a good 5K is to do 200 push-ups a day and then march around in a giant vat of mashed potatoes, guess what? You're not going to run a very good 5K because the training was poor. You have to have good training to influence your performance. The training that you do has a bearing. Next, W is work. That is absolutely within your control. Just like I said before, no one is going to make you be good. No one is going to make you do the work. It is totally up to you just how much work you want to put in. And it is within your control. You could rate your work as to how hard are you willing to work on a scale of 1 to 10. And I'm going to ask you to do that in just a minute. But just know it's on you and it's 1 through 10. The last variable, and this one's a little bit more confusing, but it's still important because at the end of the day, we have to acknowledge whether or not we accomplish that time goal is dependent upon impediments. Impediments, I like to tell my athletes, is a 50-50. It's 50% on you and 50% not controllable. And again, the not controllable stuff, you can just say, hey, is destiny, is in the cards, it was God, whatever. I mean, you can just say God controlled the genetics. You can just say it's, and we don't, doesn't matter whose hands it's in, however you like to look at it, but it's not ours. And this likewise is not ours, right? 50% of the impediments is within your control because you can decide what is a big enough impediment to keep you from putting your work towards your training, right? And all of my athletes, I always talk with them, I have them that are anywhere from hangnail to hurricane. That's how I explain it. For some athletes, a hangnail. I can't do the run today, coach. I got a hangnail. Just can't do it. That's fine, but that's where they are. Some people, Hurricane Michael is going on outside and they are determined and no, it doesn't matter what the weatherman says. It is totally great running weather. I am going out there and I'm getting my training done. Maybe that's not the best either, all right? But it is on you. The other 50% of the impediments are whenever, as much as we try to do exercise prevention, and if you do driven and dedicated training, we have a whole set of strength and mobility work that we do, and we try to be cautious and we change our shoes and not get injured, but in reality, injuries happen, and that's not within our control. But if you get a stress fracture or a soft tissue injury somewhere in your 3-month training sequence leading up to your half marathon, yes, it's going to affect whether or not you're able to obtain that performance, but it's not within our control. But we have to still acknowledge it's there. All right, so in just a second, I'm going to ask you to pause the video because I want you to focus on the 2 U's of the running formula, right? Spending all kinds of time brooding over the stuff we can't control is not going to help impact your performance, but the 2 that you can control will. So I want you to take a minute and reflect with my work and how hard I am willing to work to accomplish this goal. Where am I on a scale of 1 to 10? Where am I with impediments on a scale of 1 to 10? How big of an impediment is it going to take for me to say, you know what, there's X, so I guess I'm just not doing my training today? You need to decide where on a scale of 1 to 10. Take a reflective moment. Pause the video now. Okay, you're back. Hopefully you paused the video. Hopefully you took a moment. You decided where you were on a scale of 1 to 10. If you, for work and impediments, rated yourself anywhere from 6 to 9, then performance-driven and dedicated training might be for you, because these are the athletes that I work with. So if you found yourself a 10, where it's just, there is nothing that will stop me, it doesn't matter, you know, there is a place for you. There is some trainer out there, personal trainer, that would work with you, that is just as 10 as you are about it, but I am not that person. And so I can try to make recommendations if you fall into that box. Also, if you're 5 and below, likewise, there are other personal trainers that are going to design training plans that are going to be better suited for your aspirations with your work and your impediments. Does it mean if you rated yourself 5 and below, you shouldn't be doing this? You shouldn't be exercising? That it's not a worthwhile goal for you to try to accomplish this? Absolutely not. It just means that my style and the way that I'm going to approach it is not going to help you have a healthy relationship with the sport. But the 6 to 9s, if that's where you rated yourself, click on the Contact Coach Hassel box if this all sounds like something you want to be a part of, so that we can begin your running journey.